Chosen one, hear this clearly. Tomorrow will not rise for you the way it has before. This is not poetry, not symbolism, not a dramatic phrase. It is a prophetic signal. Heaven has permitted you to be confronted with this truth because something in your life is reaching its final dawn. You did not find this message by accident. You were led here because God has scheduled a divine interruption in the middle of your routine. When the Almighty prepares a soul for transition, He does not whisper casually. He positions moments, aligns timing, and orchestrates encounters exactly like this one. You have felt the subtle tension in your spirit, the quiet uneasiness that you could not name. That trembling is not fear. It is heaven brushing against your awareness. It is the first sign that a chapter is closing, that a path is narrowing, that a door you assumed would always remain open is now approaching its last hinge. God does not allow you to walk blindly into endings. In His mercy, He sends warnings disguised as awakenings, and this message is one of them. Somewhere between your silent prayers and the thoughts you never said out loud, heaven decided that tonight your spirit must be confronted with truth. You have lived believing there would always be more time, more tomorrows to change, more chances to correct what is drifting, more space to fix what you've ignored. But God dismantles illusions before He dismantles seasons. He shakes hearts before He shifts destinies. And the reason you feel this message so deeply is because your tomorrow has already begun to change in the unseen realm. Just as Samuel was awakened by a voice in the night, not realizing it was God calling him into a new assignment, you are being awakened at an unexpected hour. And just as Moses was interrupted by a burning bush in the middle of an ordinary day, unaware that everything familiar was about to end, you are standing in a moment where your life is being redirected by the hand of God. The pattern is ancient, but the application is personal. Heaven is once again speaking through a vessel, not because God is distant, but because this is how He has always prepared His chosen for irreversible transitions. There is a nearness in the spiritual atmosphere tonight, a thinness, a soft pull on your inner world that you cannot explain. Something in your life, a cycle, a role, an attachment, a belief, a behavior, is approaching its God-ordained conclusion. This is not punishment, it is preparation. The uneasiness you feel is proof that your spirit recognizes the truth behind these words. This is alignment, revelation, and mercy woven into one moment. You are being called because you are seen. You are being warned because you are loved. You are being awakened because heaven has decided it is time. And before we go any further, if your spirit bears witness to this message, respond now. Type 777 as your covenant of faith, a signal that you receive what heaven is speaking, that you recognize this divine interruption, and that you are ready to awaken before the door closes. Faith that remains silent weakens. Faith that responds is strengthened. Chosen one, if your spirit was stirred by the first message, then listen with even deeper attention now, because tonight carries a spiritual weight that is not ordinary. The heavens are shifting in a way they have not shifted for you before, and though nothing around you may look different, your inner world has already sensed the change. That quiet tension in your chest, that sudden awareness you cannot explain, that feeling that something unseen is pressing near, these are not emotional reactions. They are signs that the spiritual realm is closer than usual, signaling that a transition has begun. There are moments in a person's life when the veil between the natural and the divine becomes thin enough for the soul to recognize what the mind has ignored. Tonight is such a moment. The unseen is drawing nearer, not to frighten you, but to reveal what has been hidden. Heaven is opening a window of awareness because the season you are in is concluding, and God will not allow you to walk into an ending without first opening your eyes. What you feel right now is not anxiety, it is awakening. It is your spirit responding to divine movement. Every moment of uneasiness you felt this week, every shift in your emotions, every sudden thought about situations you have avoided, none of it was random. These were early warnings gentle alerts from heaven preparing you for a deeper truth. God always speaks in the spirit before he moves in the natural. The soul is being examined. The unseen is being measured. The choices you have made, the paths you have taken, the habits you have carried, are standing before divine clarity. This is not a message of condemnation. It is a message of illumination. God is revealing what cannot remain if you want to enter what comes next. In Scripture, before God changed a destiny, he always stirred the atmosphere around the person he chose. That same stirring is happening around you tonight. It explains why your emotions feel amplified, why your thoughts feel sharper, and why the familiar feels suddenly uncomfortable. Your spirit is detecting movement before your eyes can see it. Heaven is calling you into a higher awareness because your tomorrow is changing, and your soul must be prepared before your circumstances shift. Now that your spirit has begun to sense the shift around you, you must understand one of the most subtle dangers in any divine transition: delay. A person can feel the stirring of heaven, recognize that a chapter is ending, sense that something unseen is moving, yet still lose the moment simply because they hesitate. Delay does not appear as rebellion. It appears as comfort, as caution, as the quiet idea that there will always be more time. This illusion has weakened more destinies than adversity ever has. This is why the urgency within you has grown. It is not pressure, it is protection. When God opens a window of awareness, it is because movement is required before the window closes. The enemy of your soul understands this truth better than most people. He does not need to turn a person away from the truth. He only needs to convince them to postpone it. C.S. Lewis captured this strategy perfectly in the Screwtape Letters, where the senior tempter advises the younger one that the surest road to ruin is not sudden rebellion, but gradual drifting. Make him think he has time, Screwtape instructs. No violence, no crisis, just delay. Lewis called it the gentle slope, the path that feels harmless, but eventually leads a person away from what heaven intended. The warning fits this moment in your life precisely. What you feel tonight is not meant to make you reflect endlessly. It is meant to move you. God does not awaken your spirit out of curiosity. He awakens it to prepare you for what is coming. Throughout Scripture, every divine shift demanded timely obedience. Samuel answered the call immediately. Moses turned aside without hesitation. Joseph moved before sunrise when the angel warned him. Their responsiveness preserved their destinies. Now that you understand the danger of delay, you must face the truth that heaven never softens. Endings do not wait for permission. They do not knock. They do not warn politely. They arrive the way night overtakes day, certain, silent, unstoppable. What is shifting in your life is not abstract. It is real, and it is approaching with a certainty that cannot be negotiated. The season you are leaving is reaching its final breath, and what comes next will not accommodate what you refuse to release. Life on this earth is far more fragile than people allow themselves to admit. A relationship can change with a single conversation. A heart can stop between one breath and the next. A door of opportunity can close without sound. A chapter you thought you controlled can end before you realize its final sentence has been written. God is not revealing this to frighten you, but to awaken you to a reality most ignore until it is too late. Nothing in your life is guaranteed to remain as it is now. This is why heaven is speaking with such weight tonight. The signs you have felt, restlessness, discomfort, the sense of an invisible pressure, are evidence that God is positioning you to see the truth before circumstances force you to. The greatest losses in life are rarely sudden. They are simply noticed too late. People mistake warning signs for emotions, intuition for worry, and divine urgency for overthinking. But heaven sees what you cannot, and heaven interrupts because it loves you too much to let you walk blindfolded toward a moment that demands preparation. Scripture gives a sobering reminder through the story of Job. In a single day, everything familiar to him collapsed, not because he was being destroyed, but because God was pulling him into a transformation he never saw coming. Job survived what others would have collapsed under because his foundation was prepared before the end arrived. The lesson is not about loss. It is about readiness. You are being asked to embrace that same readiness now. Something in your life, whether a habit, a relationship, a pattern, or an entire chapter, is nearing its God-appointed conclusion. To ignore this truth is to walk unprepared. To acknowledge it is to step under divine protection. Heaven is not trying to alarm you. Heaven is trying to align you. What ends will end with or without your consent, but what follows depends on your awareness and your willingness to respond. And in part 5, you will understand why people lose themselves in this moment and how you can avoid becoming one of them. One of the deepest truths you must confront in this moment is that most people live as if time belongs to them. They assume tomorrow will always wait, that opportunities will return, that conversations can be postponed, that healing can be delayed, that obedience can be saved for a better moment. This belief feels harmless, but it is the quiet lie that weakens destinies and blinds the soul. Nothing steals purpose more effectively than the assumption that there will always be more time. You have felt the urgency inside you for a reason. Your spirit has been uneasy because something within you knows that postponing change is no longer an option. The human heart is skilled at explaining away conviction, calling it stress, overthinking, or emotion, when in reality, it is heaven trying to warn you that the window you stand before will not remain open forever. People lose themselves not because they reject truth, but because they delay responding to it. They wait for a perfect moment that never arrives. They wait for clarity that only comes after obedience. They wait for comfort while God is calling them into courage. Every time you told yourself, "I'll deal with it later," a little part of your purpose dimmed. Every time you postponed a change you knew you needed to make, the ending moved one step closer. Every time you ignored the stirring inside you, the gap between where you are and where you were meant to be widened. Heaven is bringing this to your attention now, because the illusion of endless tomorrows has run its course. You are not being shamed, you are being awakened. This is the moment when you must recognize that delay is no longer neutral, it is costly. Not choosing is also a choice. Standing still is still movement, but in the wrong direction. As the truth of your situation becomes clearer, you must now confront a sacred requirement woven into every divine transition. What cannot save you cannot remain with you. There are things you have carried, habits that drain you, relationships that confuse you, attachments that weaken you, patterns that blind you that were never meant to accompany you into the next chapter. Heaven does not ask you to release them to punish you, but to protect you. You cannot step into what is ahead while holding tightly to what was only meant for a previous version of you. Letting go is not a loss, it is alignment. It is the moment when your hands open so something greater can be placed within them. Much of the heaviness you have felt recently has come from trying to hold on to what your spirit has already outgrown. You have sensed this truth, even if you haven't fully admitted it. The conversations that leave you empty, the habits that leave you guilty, the patterns that leave you exhausted, your soul has been signaling that they can no longer remain. Heaven is simply confirming what your heart already knew. This is why the shift happening around you feels both uncomfortable and necessary. God is not removing things from your life at random. He is clearing the space required for clarity, strength, and purpose to enter. Every divine ending begins with release. Moses could not hold on to Egypt and walk into his calling. Samuel could not cling to Eli when God was preparing him to hear his voice directly. You too must loosen your grip on what cannot carry you forward. Tonight is not like any night you have lived before. There is a spiritual weight resting on this moment that cannot be ignored, explained away, or postponed. Something in the atmosphere around you has shifted. Something in your spirit has awakened. Something in your journey has reached a point where remaining the same is no longer possible. This is not imagination or emotion. This is the unmistakable pull of heaven calling you into a choice that will shape everything that follows. In every divine story, there comes a moment when a person must decide who they will be on the other side of an ending. That moment for you is now. The signs you have felt, the uneasiness, the restlessness, the sense of being confronted internally, all of it has led to this point of clarity. Tonight is the night when God holds open a door that will not stay open indefinitely, and He watches to see what you will choose before the veil begins to close again. There are rare moments in the spiritual realm when indecision becomes the most dangerous choice of all. Not because God punishes hesitation, but because certain windows of alignment are designed to be temporary. Heaven is generous, but heaven is also intentional. When a season reaches its final breath, the door into the next one must be walked through with awareness, not delay. You are standing before such a door now. The ending you have sensed, the internal shift you have felt, the spiritual pressure that has been building, they are all signs that the moment of decision cannot be pushed aside any longer. Scripture has always shown that decisive moments are holy moments. When Elijah stood before Israel and asked, "How long will you waver between two opinions?" It was not a rebuke, but an invitation. The nation had reached a point where neutrality was no longer possible. Their future depended on a choice. When Joshua declared, "Choose this day whom you will serve," he was speaking to people who had lived in cycles for years, but cycles do not break without decisions. When Jesus called his disciples, he never asked for slow consideration. He simply said, "Follow me," and those who hesitated missed what those who responded instantly received. Heaven has always honored the heart that moves when it is called. Tonight carries that same spiritual pattern. What you choose now will determine the direction of the next chapter of your life. You cannot cling to what weakens you and still expect to enter what was designed to strengthen you. You cannot hold on to what is ending and still step into what is beginning. You cannot remain in the middle ground when God is asking you to move. This is the night when your soul stands in the balance, when your future bends toward your willingness to respond, when heaven watches to see whether you will align yourself with what it is revealing. The door is open, but it will not remain open forever. The veil is thin, but it will not stay lifted indefinitely. What has been made clear to you tonight is meant to be acted upon, not simply acknowledged. Every spiritual shift demands a response, and this moment is no exception. As the weight of this night settles into your spirit, you must understand a truth that heaven repeats across every generation. Preparing for what comes next is not an act of fear, but an act of freedom. The world teaches people to brace themselves out of anxiety, to anticipate loss, to expect disaster, but heaven does not prepare you in that way. God does not awaken you so you can tremble. He awakens you so you can stand. What He reveals is never meant to weaken you, but to position you for strength. What He exposes is never meant to frighten you, but to free you from what would have harmed you later. Fear locks the heart. Preparation opens it. Fear causes hesitation. Preparation creates clarity. Fear makes you cling to what is familiar. Preparation gives you the courage to release what was never meant to stay. The difference between the two is spiritual vision. Fear looks at endings and sees loss. A prepared soul looks at endings and sees the doorway into what is real, lasting, and aligned with God's purpose. This is why heaven is pressing so strongly on your awareness tonight. Not because something terrible is coming, but because something meaningful is drawing near. People misunderstand God's warnings because they confuse His urgency with human fear, but divine urgency is not panic, it is protection. When God presses on your heart, when He stirs your spirit, when He disrupts your peace, it is because He sees a path you cannot see from where you stand. He knows what must be released, what must be strengthened, what must be reordered before the next season begins. Preparation is His way of making sure you are not crushed by the weight of what you were created to carry. C.S. Lewis once wrote that courage is not the absence of fear, but the control of it, a resolution of the soul to stand firm in truth, even when the unknown stretches out ahead. That wisdom applies to this moment. Your future is not asking you to be fearless, it is asking you to be ready. Ready to see clearly, ready to obey quickly, ready to step away from what cannot follow you, ready to trust what heaven is revealing. This is the shift happening within you now. This is why the veil lifted tonight. This is why your heart feels both unsettled and awakened. God is not calling you into dread. He is calling you into alignment. Now that your heart has begun to understand the difference between fear and preparation, you must see the deeper truth behind everything heaven has been revealing tonight. This awakening is not general, not random, not something meant for anyone else. It is personal. It is directed. It is intentional. It is God calling you back into alignment with who you were always meant to be. This moment carries weight because it carries identity. You are not being stirred for the sake of change alone. You are being stirred because heaven sees something in you that the world has never fully recognized. You are being called because you matter. There is a tenderness hidden beneath the urgency you have felt. Heaven does not reach for souls it has given up on. Heaven reaches for those it refuses to lose. The shaking you felt earlier was not punishment, it was remembrance. A reminder that you were not created to drift, to settle, to carry wounds forever, or to walk in circles around the same battles. Something in your spirit has always known that you were made for more than the patterns you've outgrown. And tonight God is drawing you back to that knowing. People often imagine that God speaks only in grand gestures, in miracles, signs, visions, thunder. But the truth is that he most often speaks through moments exactly like this. Quiet but weighty, gentle but undeniable, subtle but impossible to ignore. When the soul becomes restless, when the heart becomes sensitive, when the mind becomes aware without understanding why, it is because heaven has leaned close enough for your spirit to feel it. You are not imagining this. You are being invited. There comes a point in every person's journey when the call of God becomes louder than the noise of their life, a moment when the desire for clarity becomes stronger than the desire for comfort, a moment when the soul recognizes that continuing as it has is no longer an option. That moment is happening for you now. It is not a coincidence that your awareness has sharpened tonight, that old habits suddenly feel heavier, that your emotions feel exposed, that your thoughts feel clearer than they have in weeks. This is how God draws the heart back to him, not by force, but by recognition. Returning to God is not about shame. It is about restoration. It is not about judgment. It is about alignment. It is not about being perfect. It is about being willing. He is calling you because there are places within you he wants to heal, things within you he wants to strengthen, paths before you he wants to open. The ending you've sensed is not meant to break you, it is meant to clear the way for what was always meant to belong to you. Tonight, heaven has placed a choice in your hands, to return to the one who has been guiding you long before you knew you needed guidance, to turn toward the voice that has been whispering through your restlessness, to acknowledge the stirring you can no longer deny. This call is not for tomorrow, it is for now, because the window you stand before is open, and the one who opened it is waiting not with anger, but with a love that refuses to let you miss what comes next. Before you move forward, allow this final moment to settle into your spirit. You have walked through revelation, awakening, warning, clarity, and invitation. Now you must step into the prayer that seals everything heaven has spoken over you tonight. This is not merely a closing prayer. It is a spiritual alignment, a declaration, a covenant between your soul and the God who has pursued you through every season, every silence, every confusion, and every turning point. Let your heart be still, let distractions fall away, and let these words become your bridge between the life you have lived and the life that now waits for you. May the God who formed you in the quiet before time place his hand upon your spirit and awaken every part of you that has been asleep. May he open your eyes to see clearly, open your ears to hear truth, and open your heart to recognize the path He has set before you. May every fear that has restrained you lose its power. Every lie that has misled you be exposed, and every chain that has wrapped itself around your identity be broken by the authority of His presence. May the weight of past seasons lift from your shoulders, and may the burdens you were never meant to carry fall away. May you be released from cycles that drained your strength, from patterns that blurred your purpose, and from attachments that pulled you away from who you were meant to become. Let the Spirit of God sweep through the hidden places within you, cleansing, renewing, strengthening, and restoring every part of your inner world. May courage rise in you like a steady flame. May clarity settle in your mind with the calm of morning light. May your soul remember who you are beyond your failures, your delays, and your disappointments. May you step into the truth of being fully seen, fully known, and fully loved by the one who has never abandoned you, even in the moments when you abandoned yourself. May doors that were meant for you open without resistance. May opportunities align with divine timing. May the right voices appear around you, and the wrong ones fade into the distance. May wisdom guide your steps, grace cover your weakness, and peace anchor you when the next chapter demands courage. May you walk into the future not as someone hoping to survive, but as someone chosen to rise. And now, may the God who called you tonight complete the work He has begun in you. May His presence guard your sleep, His voice guide your decisions, His strength uphold your purpose, and His love surround your journey. Tonight, you have awakened. Tonight, you have returned. Tonight, heaven has marked your name. And as you step forward from this moment, may every ending lead to alignment, every transition lead to transformation, and every breath remind you that you are held, you are seen, and you are never walking alone. This prayer is your seal. This moment is your turning, and what comes next is your beginning.